So welcome to a new Game Stuff episode. And before I came in to do this episode, I was sitting around thinking, I'm like, oh my god, I've been doing the new Game Stuff episodes for around 13 years. I started back in 2009, and the reason why I did was I ordered off my friend Luke Moore's One in Japan, a PC Engine and the CD-ROM attachment together, the dock for that. And I wanted to do an episode on it, and I was like, what am I going to call it? And I'm like, I'll call it New Game Stuff? And I didn't think I'd be here 13 years later, still doing it. So I want to thank you guys for always watching. And before I get into this stuff, I got quite a few things to show. Not a huge episode, but some neat things. What have you guys been picking up in the way of new game stuff? Let me know down below. Okay, we'll start off with one that got delayed for a year plus. And it's not that I forgot I ordered it, but I thought it was never coming. It was one of those because of what happened with the pandemic and all that crazy stuff, but it finally showed up. Ninja Gaiden here, the vinyl. This is absolutely exciting and incredible because it has the NES music on there, which I'm going to talk all about Ninja Gaiden here. I absolutely love that music, but it also has the arcade game. And me and my friends used to play the arcade game in 7-Eleven, and we used to marvel at the graphics of it. It's like, oh my god. You know, Ninja Gaiden on the NES was pretty good, but the arcade game was something else, and this music is burned into my soul. And I'm telling you, this is what I want to get into, is that being a kid in the 80s and 90s, it was all about ninjas. It was all about ninjas, and me and my friends, all we talked about was ninjas all the time. I remember going into magazine sections, and there'd be like ninja magazines. We'd always have to pick those up, and I was always like studying it. And one of my friends ended up getting a ninja suit and sneaking out in the middle of the night and rearranging his neighbor's backyard. Crazy things were happening back then. We didn't have the internet, so that's what people were doing back then. I don't know if that's good or not, but what is good is I have the Ninja Gaiden soundtrack, and it finally showed up all these years later, it feels. So, okay, we're still into music here, and oh, isn't it strange? I did an episode last year called, my best gaming summer, my favorite gaming summer that me and Rob ever had, and I still feel that to this day. It's one of my favorite episodes I did last year because I captured that time period of 1999 perfectly. And as you know, after that, I had to get the strategy guide for one of the games I talked about. And guess what? Isn't it strange how things work out? The vinyl for this was released, and I ordered this some ways back too. Power Stone. Yes, this soundtrack is eternally clocked into my brain. I hear it all of the time. I love it, and it really reminds me of that time when Rob brought his Dreamcast back from Japan, and we were playing it, and we had Power Stone. What a summer! What a summer it was, and I like the new artwork that they've done on here. It looks really, really good, and this will be getting quite a few listens to, that is for sure. And here, something else that I ordered besides it. I'm going to open it up for you guys here. Oh my god, for anybody in the 80s. It was more the 80s for this style of thing. They released this and I had to pick it up as well. The cassette. I'm going to get it real close up there. Will that show up? Yes. They did a cassette for Power Stone. Look at that. Isn't that... Are you like, what era are we living in? Is this real life? And yes, that's real life. Power Stone, the cassette. It's crazy. I was just like, yeah, being the nostalgic guy that I am and loving the game, the vinyl was cool, but the cassette is really interesting. I could probably play this because I do have a cassette player, but I think I'll keep it sealed in its original packaging for now because it's just so unique. I mean, the music from Power Stone, oh my god, so great, so great. Okay, I wrote myself a note here, and you're gonna like this. This is funny for this next item because I always get the pronunciation wrong, and because back in the day there was no internet video, so I didn't know how to pronounce it, and I was like, what? And I still think it's the most ridiculous name to this day, and I'm gonna try Napishtum, Ease 6. Napishtum, the vinyl for this. Oh boy. You know, this is a very, very special game to me. It's a very special soundtrack to me because it was in a time when I thought Ys was finished. Okay, we had Ys books 1 and 2 and 3. 4 we never got, but I played the Japanese version, and that was it. I played the 5th game as well, but that was it. I played the 5th game in Japanese on the Super Famicom. But that was it. We were getting no more Ys games, and I thought that Ys was finished, that it was over, there was no more. And I was really bummed out about it, and I was like, it's, as I say, one of the reasons why I kind of started the show, because I kind of thought things were getting forgotten, and I thought Ys was a forgotten series, where Falcom put everything into it and brought the game back in 3D on the PlayStation 2. And I'd really like to do an episode on Ys 6, because I never really got a chance to talk about it. But I will say this much, because I have it in my hands. The music is probably in my top 5 Ys games of all time. And that's saying something, because Ys, a lot of the games have incredible soundtracks. Not all of them, but I would say most, at least 70% of them, have incredible soundtracks. This music, every single piece, because before I ordered it, I was like, is this worth it? Do we want to get this? And I'm like, oh my god. I went through the OST on YouTube, and every song was just tear-inducing, going, oh my god, what a special time. I mean, and not only did Ys come back with Ys 6 on the PS2, but it was great. It was fantastic. And I was like, I can't believe how well they got it in 3D, because I made an episode of reality, of retro to reality, and sometimes those games don't translate from 2D to 3D. This game translated very, very well, and who knows, we might get a remake of it in the future, and I'd be happy to see that, that's for sure. Okay, I get rid of my note, Napishtum, right there. Okay, we're gonna get into some games here. Yes, I know, get the soundtracks out of the way. I always like to show those first. This by Limited Run. I never thought I'd see the return of these games, and I'm so thrilled that they're back. And last year for Halloween, me and Kim were planning on playing them, but we got really busy with her daughter and we couldn't get to it. This year might be a little bit easier to do that. And that is Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol right here. They made a return on the Nintendo Switch, and what a nostalgic game, what a great game from the Super Nintendo days. They got it really right, and this is one of those games that holds up pretty well. And I love the 2-player action in there, and I love running around the neighborhood, shooting zombies with your friends. Great stuff. Really kind of capturing the 80s in a lot of ways, definitely the 90s as well. And to have both these games in here was like, I think so. I think so. So I'm really happy that a lot of these games from the Super Nintendo era are getting physical copies back again, so a new generation can play them. And you can get them digitally as well, but obviously I wanted it physical. Okay. Speaking of wanting to get it physical, here's Andro Dunos 2, a sequel to the amazing Neo Geo shooter or shmup for a lot of you out there. A great classic game from the arcade era. And I used to play this all the time in the arcades, and it's amazing, isn't it, to think about nowadays how far we've come. But these graphics at the time were unbelievable, and I was kind of shocked to see a sequel to this game for the Neo Geo, and I will always support Neo Geo anything, because I will always be such a big fan of that machine and the era of arcades and what it really did back then. And so it's really cool to see this kind of style of game come back, and a sequel as well. Okay, this was a recommendation, and I played it, and I was like, I fell in love with the game. I thought it was amazing. And when I saw that there was going to be a physical copy of the game, I was like, count me in. Haven, here, about a couple who land on a planet trying to escape everything, and the adventure they go on is kind of an action RPG, some real RPG combat going on in there. But it's kind of got this whimsical take on it, where you're just kind of gliding around the world, and it just feels so relaxing. And the weird thing is, their relationship is so real, and they kind of make it very, very real. You feel the isolation, but you also feel that their relationship is very, very strong, and keeps them there and keeps them together, even in this crazy world that they're actually living in. And Haven, very cool stuff, and it's interesting to have this on PS5, so had to pick that up. Okay, it arrived from Play Asia, and a game that I did a review on, and I still think is really, really good. A lot of people were upset about the slowdown, and I went back to the game and I see it, I get it, but it didn't really affect me when I was playing it too much, but I can see for a lot of people it did, and that's for Chrono Cross, right here. And I'm hoping that they do a patch in the future, so it like makes everybody happy and gives everybody what they want and all of that, but I still was so happy to see a return of this game, a game from, you know, not my childhood, but my mid-20s, now in a very special time for Square Enix. It was. I mean, Chrono Cross was a sequel we didn't think we were getting, and it came and we're like, what is this? What is this? The graphics were so different compared to, say, Chrono Trigger, and we realized, well, it's not Chrono Trigger, it's Chrono Cross. It's its own thing, a spiritual successor in a sort of way there, but beautiful music, beautiful visuals. I love the whole tropical aspect of it, and I think that's what's so high for me on there, and really cool stuff. But yes, I guess, watch out for the slowdown, because there's a bit of slowdown in the game, in combat. And Ganryu is here, Ganryu 2. What a cool action samurai game. And I just saw this game and I was like, yep, this looks damn cool. And I love the side view action of it all, but I really like the graphics, and it almost feels like an old arcade game. And that's what kind of got me sold on this game. And yeah, the visuals there, everything's there. I love the look of the character. And the funny thing about the game is it has that kind of look where it's not the best looking game in the world, but it's not the worst. It feels like it's from the past. Does that make any sense to you? It has that kind of look to it, but don't get me wrong, the graphics are really cool and the action's really, really awesome. And here's an interesting game, Gunborg, Dark Matters. Have any of you played this game? Have any of you loving this game? I'd really like to hear your opinions on it. A blind leap of faith getting into this, that is for sure. But I really, really like the graphics. I really like the play mechanics that you're utilizing with your shield at times. Fascinating looking stuff, nice looking graphics, and I mean, what a time for indie games in general. I don't think I've ever seen the amount of indie love that we see nowadays, and there's so many developers out there that are just going for it and making the games that they love, and this feels like one of those style of games. Okay, we're back to music for a second because this one was at the bottom, and I saw, man, if there was a vinyl on this, I would instantly buy it because it's one of my favorite soundtracks from last year. I would say my favorite soundtrack for the entire year, and here we go. I got this from Play Asia, Shin Megami Tensei 5. Had to get this, had to get this, had to get this. This music will forever remind me of that time where me and Kim were sitting around on the Switch playing this game, and it was such a great game. Game of the year for me last year, but soundtrack of the year. The music is so good. Like, I mean, the combat music is excellent. I love that stuff. But some of the boss music, I mean, never mind even the overworld brooding music that's going on. This is a soundtrack. When it showed up, Kim's like, oh my god, that soundtrack showed up. That's so cool. And this is one that, I know, I got a CD player in my car. I can also do digital music in the car as well. But I always like to bring CDs with me. This will be definitely one to come along with me there for sure. Shin Megami Tensei 5. Incredible stuff. Okay, we're near the end of this episode. I know, I said I only picked up a few things. This is a very interesting one, and I'm bringing it over here right now. Okay, I'll say it's available on hyperplayrpg.com. Okay, and I got a bit of explanation here. Okay, so many years ago, I played Xenogears, and I had to pick up the Xenogears Perfect Works book because this book is the Bible on Xenogears and the timelines and how big the game was going to be, how many games there were going to be, all the mecha, all the characters. It is absolutely extraordinary. And I'm just speaking for me personally, being into arts and loving drawing, this book was a must-have for me. The only shortcoming was it was only in Japanese. And so I couldn't read, all of the great whimsical stuff. I could look at the art and marvel at that, and the book was worth it enough for that, where then all of a sudden there was an English PDF file that was released, and somebody went in and translated the whole book, and I was like, oh my god. So I definitely downloaded that. The person gave it away for free back in the day, and I was read through that, and I just thought it was really, really cool. So anyways, this is an interesting one, and I got to do some explanation on this, because I got in touch with the person about it, because there is a printed version, Xenogears Perfect Works, in English, using that PDF file. And I'm like, this is amazing, and wait a second, yeah. So I got in touch with the people at hyperplayrpg.com, and I sat on Skype and I talked to the person. I said, hey, what's the deal with this book? Is this like on the level? And he said, yeah, the person who printed it, who did the PDF file, said anybody can print it and do what they want and all that. And so they created this book for fans. You know, this is not like a big money-making thing. They're doing it for fans, and he'll only ship it to people who already have the book. So I was like, you know what? I can kind of get down with that. So if you have the original book, you're looking for an English version, it's available in that link that I just provided, and you can check it out. And I'm only talking about it because I love Perfect Works, and to see it in a printed form, unbelievable. In English, incredible stuff. So for any Xenogears fans, check it out. I mean, very cool. Okay, the final item that I'm going to talk about is a manga. And it's a manga that I saw an anime adaptation for in the 90s. And I only was able to see a couple of episodes back then because they weren't widely available. As you know, back in the 90s they weren't. Things are very, very different now. And the author passed away, and I was like, you know, I always wanted to jump into reading the manga, and I never did. So I picked up the very first copy of Berserk right here. And look at this book. Look how big this book is. And I thought, well, I don't know, how much time I have to sit reading this entire book. But you know what? I sat and read this entire book. And, the interesting thing about Berserk and what I've kind of gotten wrong over the years, there was a time when I thought, from my limited knowledge of it, that it was a very basic kind of thing about this character going through the world, hacking, slashing demons. And it is that. It is that. But there is so much going on here in the way of world building and character building. So it starts off that way. But as he keeps going, he encounters other characters and you get sucked into their world and what has happened to them. And it's really dark. This is a very, very dark, bleak world. And it's brutal in a lot of ways. But your main character doesn't make it easy either because he's so brutal as well. But he has a hidden past that you start finding out about. And you start finding out about the demons themselves. And you start empathizing for them. And I've only done the first volume. And I'm like, oh my god. This is something you can get really, really addicted to. And it's a manga that's been praised by the masses. People have said, this is incredible stuff. And I wasn't against that, but I wanted to read it. And I read it and I was like, yep, this is incredible stuff. And it's one of those ones where it is a recommendation. And one of those things where, yeah, if you're on the fence, you just pick up the first volume and check it out, read it, see how it is for you. I fell in love with the art. I fell in love with the storytelling. And as they say, it starts very simple, and then all of a sudden you get sucked into the darkness. And it's incredible, the world building and characters in this game. I was so sad for some of the demons and some of the events that were going on. I couldn't believe it, and I was, held to the very last page of this. And at the last page, I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I have the room for all the volumes of this, but maybe I'll make the room because high recommendation for Berserk. How many of you have read this? Isn't it a great thing? So, guys, thank you for watching another New Game Stuff episode, and let me know what you picked up in the way of New Game Stuff for yourself there for sure. So, anyways, guys, until next time.